I'm here with Bill Daley, the National Legislative Director for Alliance for a Just Society. And Bill has been in Greece, and we have been following Greece because we see a lot of parallels between what is happening to the people of Greece and what's happening in the Greece economy, and what conservatives have been saying should be happening in the United States, the kinds of policies that we should be enacting here in this country, that they fought to enact. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Bill, since you were just recently in Greece and you've actually been there several times, is what you saw of the effects of austerity policies there in Greece.
Yeah, it was clear around the edges of things that they're not doing well. The first thing I really noticed was the number of motorcycles. It was just overwhelming how many motorcycles there were in Athens. Very few bicycles, but they can't afford cars. And so the streets are absolutely full of motorcycles and motor scooters. The other thing I noticed right away was that almost all buildings are covered in graffiti. It was clear that there had been a concerted campaign just to paint the place. Now the monuments, the historical monuments, have not been touched, but almost every other building in Athens had graffiti on it, and it hadn't been painted over.
And was this political graffiti or just general?
My Greek isn't good enough to know what all of it was, but a lot of it was political. And clearly it had been put there and nobody taken it off, and it was everywhere.
Wow.
In Athens. Somewhat, we went to Heraklion, we went to another island, and it was somewhat less there, but still tremendous amount of it. And then a lot of empty buildings, storefronts that were not open. Waterfronts that were not being attended. I also noticed that the lawns and the gardens and the other things that I've been to Greece 6 times. They kept up around their national buildings. The National Museum was where I noticed it the most. They've been let to go away around the edges. And then in talking to people, they're scared.
Okay.
They know that there's a huge problem. They're looking at 60% youth unemployment.
60%.
60% of the young people in Greece are unemployed, and they lost something like 60% of their economy when the crash came, and now they're facing these tremendous balloon payments back to the rest of Europe, which they are unable to pay, and there seems to be no way out of this problem. They need to stimulate their economy.
And the promise was that if Greece cut spending, government spending, if they cut the economic support that they gave to working people and the unemployed and the seniors, that this reduction in government spending would unleash the private sector and the economy would grow. That was pretty much the promise, right?
Yeah, and it's made everywhere, and it's been untrue everywhere. The economy is now falling back into recession. They did have a temporary uptick, a little growth in employment, a little growth in inflation, but it's fallen back into recession now. And how they're going to get out of it, given that they can't stimulate their economy, that they can't make investments in themselves, is almost impossible to imagine. The Greek's economy is largely a service economy. I think their biggest industry is shipping. And agriculture is only 15% maybe of the economy.
Okay.
The bulk of it goes into service industries. And I don't see how they're going to be able to get out of this mess unless they can get the rest of Europe to help them begin making an investment in themselves.
And what's the prognosis of that based on what you've read so far, the last few days?
The Germans in particular, which have had tremendous sway in the fiscal policies that have been adopted in Europe, seem to be insistent on requiring Greece to pay back payments that it now cannot make. There's even talk in Greece of leaving the Eurozone, readopting the drachma, and moving out of Europe. I don't think the Greeks want that. I also don't think the rest of Europe wants it. But because of the insistence on this austerity policy, particularly by Germany, they may have no way out. They may go through another election soon, just to try to resolve differences inside their own majority. But there doesn't seem to be any real way for them to pay what is being asked, and the Germans seem insistent on it. And I must say, it is not just Greece that we're looking at here. The same kind of problem also exists in Portugal. It also exists to a degree in Spain and Italy. And they haven't gotten themselves into the tremendous kind of fiscal mess that Greece agreed to enter into via these agreements with the European community. But those economies are also in trouble. Mm-hmm. There are also tremendous unemployment, and they also don't have any way, as long as the austerity fiscal policy is insisted on, they don't have any way to get out of the mess.
I've often heard conservatives say, and you've heard it too, that unless we cut Social Security and we cut entitlements, we're going to end up like Greece. Well, in Greece they cut entitlements, and some of these other countries you just talked about, they cut entitlements. It seems like the real argument is that if we follow the conservative right-wing prescription of cutting government for those at the bottom and then cutting taxes for those at the top, that's the real road to ruin.
The Republicans just adopted a budget in the United States Congress. It contemplates taking something like $5 trillion out of the economy in 10 years. Mm-hmm. That is a nightmare for small businesses. We work a lot with small businesses, and these little businesses get their economic strength from the community that surrounds them. They don't do international finance. They have customers that come to buy food or T-shirts or get their car fixed from the neighborhood around them. If that neighborhood is unsuccessful, then those small businesses are unsuccessful. And we haven't put the money in those communities, and we won't if we take $5 trillion out of our economy. Those small businesses will not be able to expand. The stagnant growth that we're having will continue, and we may fall back into even worse trouble if we do what they're saying.
So the debate that we're having over the next few months, going into this presidential campaign, where the Republicans have introduced this budget, which actually is not a significant piece of the conversation right now. But as you said, it's very consequential, and we're about to enter this debate where the choices are between that path and an alternative path. The stakes are huge.
The stakes are huge, and if that budget is implemented, we will face the same kind of problems that they are facing in Europe, where they almost went into deflation 6 to 8 months ago. They do not have a healthy economy, and we won't have one here either.
So let's sum up. What would you say to people who are watching this video, who are watching the news, and they're looking at the kind of debate that we're having right now about the future of the economy? What should they be saying? What should they be doing?
We need to invest in our communities. We hear a lot of talk about infrastructure, but there is a much larger infrastructure that needs to be invested in. It's human. We need to invest in our schools. We need to invest in health care. We need to invest in taking care of one another. They're talking about cutting $125 billion out of food stamps. That is one of the most stimulating economic investments that we make. It's immediately spent, and it creates demand in the economy, and it helps small businesses grow and take care of themselves. We need to make those investments, and we need to raise the money to do it. And if we do, then we can get through this patch and hopefully become a symbol to the rest of the world about how the economy really does work for people and how it can work for them as well.
You can keep track of the work that Bill Daley is doing on allianceforjustsociety.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you.